Meanwhile, the news of the morning, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will step down today following a series of scandals and the resignation of over 50 ministers and senior government aides. Johnson is expected to stay in office until his successor is found, a process which could take months. Joining me right now, Center for American Security co-chairman, Fox News contributor, and former national security advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, General Keith Kellogg, is here. General Kellogg, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for weighing in. What do you think this Boris Johnson news means for the country, America?
Well, thanks, Maria. Thanks for having me. Look, all of this news going on right now, just there's a world and a lot of consternation out there. Unfortunately, when you talk about the British, they were probably our biggest ally. In fact, not probably, they were our biggest ally in supporting Ukraine. When you look at the military support they were given, they in the United States dwarfed everybody else, to include the French or the Germans or anybody else. So you just got all this consternation. And frankly, it goes back to leadership, even the leadership here in the United States. Every time I see the President Biden, it's almost like he's looking for actions in support of a strategy, and they can't find the strategy. I don't care if it's on inflation. I don't care if it's China. I don't care if it's Ukraine. It all seems to be just a complete state of either denial or just uncertain of where they want to go. And, you know, the latest one, very honestly, is when there was talking yesterday on inflation, where he's talking about now, you know, stopping the tariffs that we have on China, which is really foolish. Even his U.S. Trade Representative, Catherine Tai, said it won't make any difference if you do that. And yet it gives us a complete lack of leverage on the Chinese. So every time I turn around in the world, it seems to be a world in consternation.
Well, I think you make a great point about China, and that's really where I want to go next, because why is this administration talking about lifting tariffs on China, given the bad actor performance that we continue to see from the CCP? And we heard from FBI Director Christopher Wray this week, also the head of Britain's M15, issuing a warning on Chinese spying, months after the Biden Department of Justice ended the China Initiative program, urging business executives not to underestimate Beijing's campaign yesterday. Listen to what we heard from Christopher Wray. Got to get your take on this. Watch.
Yeah. We consistently see that it's the Chinese government that poses the biggest long-term threat to our economic and national security. The Chinese government is set on stealing your technology, whatever it is that makes your industry tick, and using it to undercut your business and dominate your market. And they're set on using every tool at their disposal to do it.
General, I mean, this is a massive threat. We obviously recognize this. We've been talking about the threat of the CCP now here for several years. The U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center also warned that China is stepping up its efforts to influence U.S. elections ahead of the November midterms, General. We know that Xi Jinping got his guy in there in Joe Biden, and Joe Biden has done everything possible to put the red carpet out for the CCP, canceling the China Initiative, about to take tariffs away, which were put in under the Trump administration. And he calls them a competitor as opposed to an adversary. Why?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, you hate to say this because it sounds, you know, a little bit radical, but it's almost like President Biden's is compromised with the Chinese. The Chinese are a threat. We have been saying that for years. Tim Wray just said that. The director of the FBI just made a very clear comment about the threat they pose to America, both economically, militarily, and politically out there. They're not a friend of ours. They're an adversary, and they're a growing adversary. They're a silent partner right now with the invasion of Ukraine with the Russians. It's almost like you want to kind of scratch your head and say, why don't we kind of realize this and make some very forceful moves against the Chinese? Look what they're doing with Taiwan. It's clearly they're intimidating Taiwan with all of these flights into their air defense identification zone, something they never did under Donald Trump. And there was reasons why we put tariffs on them under the Trump administration. They took jobs, and we've known that for years, ever since they came into WTO in 2001. And they also have we have incredible debt with China. They're not a friend of ours, and we should realize that, and we'd posture ourselves towards it. One comment, Marie, and I've said this before, that's the reason why all along I've said, look, Ukraine's important, but it's also a European problem. We have to pivot intellectually, we have to pivot strategically, we have to pivot economically, we have we have to pivot militarily towards the Pacific against the Chinese. We need to remember that because they're an expansive power, and we need to be concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to me that this keeps happening, and it's the reason that we bring up the influence peddling story. And the reason that we point out that the Biden family has taken in tens of millions of dollars from Chinese officials.
Yeah.
You have to ask the question, is he compromised? And to see all of this soft stance on an adversary that is very clear in its efforts to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower. I mean, gosh, this president has spoken with Xi Jinping 5 times so far while President Biden's in office, and not once have we heard evidence that he has asked Xi Jinping, what is the origins of COVID-19? Why can't we do a real investigation in the Wuhan lab? Now you've got U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken arriving in Bali, Indonesia today for the G20 meeting. This is the G20 foreign ministers meeting. On the sidelines of the summit, Blinken is going to be meeting with his Chinese counterpart. He's expected to emphasize the U.S.'s commitment of, quote, intense diplomacy with Beijing. What are they talking about, intense diplomacy? The last several meetings that they've had, the Chinese have dressed down the U.S. officials. They talk about racism in America. They're dressing down our Secretary of State. Is that going to happen again?
Well, look, I remember going back a few years when President Xi came into the Rose Garden in the Obama administration, and he told the American people in the Rose Garden he would not fortify the islands in the South China Sea. And within a year, he was fortifying those islands. These are people you just cannot trust. And for Tony Blinken to do that, it just amazes me. I really think the American people are starting to see through this. They realize there is a concern about the president being compromised. They're very concerned about the Chinese threat growing that's out there, and they know they can't trust him. And we just have to take, we have to be very, very forceful in our policy, and we're not doing that right now.
Yeah, I should mention one more thing, General, and that is all the darn fentanyl that is being produced in China and pushed into this country has killed 107,000 people in America in the last year because of the fentanyl-related overdoses. Why doesn't Joe Biden ever bring up fentanyl to Xi Jinping?
Yeah, here's what's amazing. I heard a pretty good statistic yesterday from somebody who's pretty smart. 35% of Mexico right now is controlled by the cartels. That's enormous, and that's where the fentanyl is coming through. It's coming through Mexico, and yet the president has not pushed back on Obrador at all about taking care of that from China.
Yeah.
It comes through Mexico into the United States, and the president has not pushed back at all on Obrador to take care of the border. Trump did that because I think that Obrador was very concerned about Trump, about us going after the cartels, and he hasn't done it. And this is another one of those issues where the president just hasn't stepped up to the plate.
Very concerning, General. Great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for weighing in, General Keith Kellogg, this morning on all of that.